constant faraway look on Casey's face and the overall mysterious vibe. The overall mysterious vibes was all that it was. Recently, I was reminded of the fact that years and years ago, I had a Wattpad account, and I wrote a lot on there. I'm looking at the profile now. I abandoned it for a really good reason, but the little that I read was just so funny because of how bad it was that I just had to come back to it and maybe make a video about it and revisit one or two of the stories. Some of them were removed obviously later because I realized how bad they were, and then a couple are still up. Sleepy Hallows, Bionic, Field Trip, Little Girl Lost, Tyler is Missing, Number Zero, The Sheriff's Daughter, Her Grave, The She-Dog of the Seven Seas, The Girl with 50 Faces, and How Not to Be an Idiot Human. That one is the oldest one, and I'm not going to touch on that. That's the one that I read, and the first paragraphs, it's like trying to be this quirky, funny, young adult story, and it's not any of those things. I'm not going to tell you what the username is because I don't want anyone to visit my profile at any time. It's been inactive for years, so it doesn't matter anyways. A couple of the premises of these stories are really cool. I still think so. I will give my past self credit. I was good at coming up with the ideas for the story, but it was the execution of those ideas where things would go wrong. For this video, I wanted to look at a specific story. It's the one that I haven't read in years and years since removing it from public, and it's called Bionic. It is my most popular story with 140 views-ish and 28 chapters. Here's the premise. Something strange is found in an alleyway one night in 2045. The boy taking the android home thinks it's an old scrap model at first, but after tinkering around with it, he's not so sure. What is this thing really, and what was it used for? He needs to find out, and soon, before the whole city goes to hell. And I'm kind of anxious about this, but yes, I have not read it in a long time. I just remember that it's bad and that I dedicated a lot of time to it, that I was proud of it, that when it became like one of the most popular ones in its genre for a really short time, it's not like top 10 or anything, more like top 500 or something. I was really happy about that. Here's the prologue, I'll read that first. After several minutes, she managed to force one eye open. The rest of her face was almost too swollen to feel, but she could feel everything else. Her gut wrenched and throbbed from all the beating. Something warm trickled down her neck. Vomit rose in her throat, threatening to spill out onto the concrete. She could tell herself that the only things keeping her from escape were the shackles, but at this point, it would take the last of her energy to stand up. The first paragraph is not looking too shabby, if I'm honest. Nothing there makes me cringe, but yeah, let's keep going. Now then. A man stepped into the room. He looked at the girl, hanging on his wall like an animal skin on display. He had the same cold, empty eyes that she remembered, the same gray suit, the same frazzled blonde hair. This was the man behind it all. It's about time you tell me what you know. Roslyn? That's a weird name. Roslyn, was it? How are you, Roslyn? Her voice was slurred and raspy, not at all fitting her words. He smiled as if amused by this. I'm doing wonderfully, and I hope it's the same for you. You've grown so much since I last saw you. The girl watched as he slowly paced the room, each turn bringing him closer. Step, step, step. Claire, Tucker, Dan. Turn, step, step. He's not saying turn, step, step. That's what's written. Sarah, Nicholas, step, turn, and Alexandra. He stopped in front of her. Which one took the goods with them? The goods. This is about the goods. It's not like I can say it was Alexandra. Of course I'm going to say it was someone else. So you're saying you would lie. What? Do you think it was me? Okay, the dialogue is a little bit clunky, but still not terrible. I think that if you don't quit this pointless chatting and start telling me what I want to know, things will get much more complicated than the wrong then. They need to be. She stared at him with the one eye she could keep open. He met her gaze unblinking. "Keep me here all day if you want," she said. "I don't really have anything else to do." That's a lot of sass for someone who's being held hostage or something. "You'll regret your arrogance. Now you sound like my mom." Why am I doing this? Okay, Dr. Roslin waved his men into the room. 2 of them were the ones told to shake her up for an hour or 2. They'd been waiting in the doorway. Another, smaller man came behind them carrying a metal suitcase. "It's ready, sir, almost to perfection." He held the suitcase open to reveal a 5-centimeter needle encased in foam. "Almost? Yes, sir. But I am 90% sure it will work as intended." Roslin lifted the syringe, pretending to admire the pale orange liquid inside. Alexandra knew its poison was for her. Oh, she's gonna be poisoned. Okay, and the thought gave her chills. "What's that?" she asked. "You're familiar with this, I'm sure." He stepped up to her left arm, holding the needle so she could see it without having to turn. "No, let me remind you." And then it cuts from that to this other long text. "It has been many years since World War III and the legendary Last War. What's left of the world is now completely controlled by the government. A city stands as the beginning of a new era, a utopia for those lucky enough to make it in. It is called Future City." Sounds a little bit generic, but okay. "What was once science fiction is now everyday. Every person's dreams have now come true. The city is safe from every conflict, isolated from poverty. Buildings glow, cars fly, and technology is only getting better. The rest of the world suffers and is thrown into a second dark age, but Future City will thrive forever." This is all the world knows. It is all the world was taught. Humans are fine with not being given the freedom of choice. They only see the extreme advance in technology as a good thing. Somehow they overlap the fact... Overlap? Or overlook? Overlook, it says overlap. Somehow they overlap the fact that mankind has never been perfect, and that a utopia can never last long. The government is the Earth's great god, but could that really be a good thing? When given so much power, wealth, and authority, could any person not go down a sinister path? And so our story begins with the end. Not metallic, but weary and dry. First impressions, it looks like it's some kind of dystopian, edgy, hardcore spy thing. It wasn't bad, so let's continue reading to chapter 1. What if this whole video goes and I end up actually liking it? It's gonna be really weird, but what if I actually like the story? I highly doubt it because I do remember certain things. Anyways, chapter 1 is called The End. It says here the year is 3013, so we've time skipped quite a bit. All she could remember was waking up. It was the end of a dream, of an endless void, a darkness she had been drowning in like an abyss of complete nothingness. Our story starts with the end. Poetry. The girl sat up. Her mind was blank at first. She was sitting on the ground. The ground was hard. Learning so much already, I see. It was made of some sort of metallic glass. Looking up, there was bad traffic, flying cars filling the sky. There was no sun and no moon, but there was light. She didn't know how long she sat there, but for some reason that was all she wanted to do. There were no words at first. She just stared at everything. Where am I? So it seemed like I just restated everything in different ways. But I mean, I guess it's not terrible still. That's the end of the chapter. So let's go to chapter 2, which is titled Minks. "Minks, come back here." "Yeah, what?" The girl called Minks was about to leave on her hoverboard, capitalized, when her mom called her back. She leaned and stomped on a switch with her foot so the board would turn around. Then she crouched and she started going back down, stopping in front of a window where her mom glared up at her. "Where are you going now? You don't have your bag." "That's because I'm not going to school," Minks said. Minks Jacqueline Tanner had long raven hair, partially dyed orange, and blue eyes. She wasn't short or tall, just average, but was very athletic. Her only faults were she was a bit stupid academically and had an excitable temper. It's a wonder her parents hadn't sent her away all the painful 16 years of having her. I feel like I'm self-projecting a little bit with that, but okay. You can't skip school again. Your exams are coming up. Do you want to make it into the academy or not? I honestly don't care, she replied, and it's not like you can stop me from skipping because I'm already gone. She tried to keep the board low because the higher you went, the worse the traffic was. Every day now, Tanner would fly her hoverboard over to a friend's place where she would meet other school skippers and good-for-nothings. They would mostly just find trouble in the city or complain to each other. Hey Minks, down here. Minks had a bit of trouble landing, but eventually she was on the ground, standing in front of her friend Max with her hoverboard hovering low behind her. Hey Max, so you're still alive. Bummer. Max was everyone's go-to guy, friendly but rebellious and always getting into trouble. He had super spiky blonde hair that was obviously made spiky with hair gel, and sincere gray eyes. He was athletic and really smart, though no one would admit it. Max was actually smart enough to go to school and even get into the academy. And that was the mysterious part about him. No one knew him to ever go to school or to even be signed up to. No one even knew his last name, age, or who his parents were, but no one ever asked. Yeah, I'm alive and well, Max grinned. Why don't ya come in? Minks left her hoverboard and followed Max into the small one-floor apartment where he lived. Inside, she could hear loud music already playing. Why aren't you wearing a t-shirt, Max? It's like 1,000 high out here. Max shrugged. Once you see my muscles, there's no turning back. Once you see my muscles, there's no turning back. The cringe is slowly setting in, okay? It's slowly coming. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Minks said. The two stepped through the front door to find the rest of the group. You're finally here! Guess what I've got today? Suddenly, Yasmin existed, waving money in Max's face. Yasmin was a hyper caffeine-addicted girl with short green hair and brown eyes. She was really short, but believe it or not, she was 17. Yasmin was a bit of a criminal and annoying sometimes, but somehow the party could never get started without her. I seem to kind of like describing characters as soon as they show up. Hey Minks, come here, there's something I want to say. That was Obsidian. Obsidian was a gloomy, sarcastic 14-year-old thug who happened to be Minks' little brother, but he was hardly ever home. That boy stuck to Max like glue ever since Max first showed up. Obsidian had raven black hair like Jacqueline's that was surprisingly neat considering the type of people he hung out with. He was also an average height and stupid like his sister without being athletic. Allie was 9 years old, the youngest in the group. It may seem totally unthinkable for an innocent little kid to be with the four of them, but they were all she had. Allie was an only child and her parents had recently gone missing. In Future City, there were no orphanages. If you had no one to raise you at age 12 or younger, the community had no use for you and you were therefore exterminated. And that made the group. It was just the 5 of them. Max, Yasmin, Allie, Obsidian, and Minks. They had been the misfit squad together for just over a year now. I'll kind of breeze through some of the more boring moments where they're just sitting on the couch and chatting about random stuff. And then one of them mentions that there's something shady going on with the government. They've heard rumors. And then they say, where'd you hear that? That's treason if you know that, blah, blah, blah. So it's something involving cyborgs and how they're trying to make something like a weapon. Which sounds like it's probably important for the story. Then, after they were talking about that and Obsidian says some edgy things as usual, there was silence. Then, hey, did you hear that? Max stood up, seeming a bit tense for no apparent reason. Hear what? Everyone replied. It's so quiet. I didn't hear anything. Everyone says at the same time, apparently. Everyone stared, confused, as Max ran to the front door and swung it open. Oh crap. The third chapter is titled The Girl on the Step, and I'm assuming it ties into the girl named Casey. Yes, that was her name. Everything was nothing. Nothing was everything. Until her eyes were opened and the light came in for the second time that week. Hey, I think she's up. Yay! I thought she was dead. It sounds more like you hope she was dead. Jerk! Step aside. Step aside. Leave it to the Maxter. Max, you were laying down cringy line after cringy line. Casey was lying on a sofa. Above her stood 5 people. 4 looked closer to her age, and 1 looked like she's just gotten out of kindergarten. Hello! You're up, right? Stop staring and say something. The blonde boy that said this seemed like a leader to her. Sure. Casey sat up. Hi, she said to him. You sure are a pain, just showing up half dead at the front door. What's wrong with you? A black-haired boy growled. A nicer looking, green-haired girl was jumping up and down like a little kid. No, we're cool, we're it's very jumbled. She's speaking a different language. It was barely English, but Casey heard every word. So who the hell are you? Obsidian asked, his hands in his probably ripped jean pockets. My name is Casey. Max could only stare at her. Casey, why do I have to read this? Casey wasn't too bad looking. She has straight brown hair that barely went past her shoulders and hazel eyes, but it wasn't her hair or eyes that made it pretty. It was more her face. The constant faraway look on Casey's face and the overall mysterious vibe. The overall mysterious vibes was all that it was. She was wearing basic casual clothes that seemed brand new pants and a t-shirt. Him and the squad all had old dirty clothes. Was this girl rich or something? That's it? He smiled. That's it. Casey didn't smile. That is about all I can take, so I think I'll end it there for today. Let me know if you want a part 2 where I either read more of this story or more of the many other stories that I have, which are not as long. Yeah, this was an experience. It seems like Bionic is as cringe as I remember it, and it's also entertaining. It is entertaining. It's not boring, I'll give it that. I was obviously having a lot of fun and whatever, but it's cringe. And I'm glad my Wattpad account is dead and over with. I hope this was enjoyable somehow. That's all from me. Bye for now.